We'll call the meeting to order. Everybody's here tonight. I'm on the board, which is nice. We have the agenda in front of us with a few changes, which were the last agenda that we got. So we have a motion to approve the agenda.
I so move.
We have a motion from Rick, a second from Jacob. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Carried. Now we have time for public comment. Anybody here for public comment?
We do have somebody here for public comment.
Okay, so whoever's coming for public comment, we'd like it down here at the microphone. Was that me that did that one?
No. Cut the mics.
Oh, we did that. I turned it all the way down, so I don't know what to do.
There's a
Unless you want to
microphone
just pull
right
that
there.
one.
Share this
This one, these are loud enough.
Here you go. Get that.
Just give him that one and we'll share this one.
Test, test.
There we go.
We'll just speak loudly.
Don't leave that yet. Leave that.
Ours are all really loud.
Okay, let's talk to you. I had sent, I'm Heather Anderson. I had sent you guys, board members, a letter just kind of stating some concerns that I had, and just kind of feeling that my daughter, who is a PSEO student, has not kind of been given the same chances as some of the other students. And so she had some things that she kind of wanted to say, and I'll just kind of pass it on to her then.
Okay, so I wrote a letter, so I made sure I didn't skip anything. So basically, my name is Jessalyn Anderson. I'm in 11th grade at Paynesville, and I'm an academically successful student with a cumulative GPA of 3.68. I continuously have participated in advanced and college classes. Since a young age, I've been involved in as many activities as I could. I was a four-sport athlete. I've been a part of Student Council, SAG, Principal's Advisory, FFA, VBS, and Paynesville Cares. I work part-time at the U Zone, and I'm an individual tutor. I have a passion for helping others and creating positive change. This is why when I was in 5th grade and I heard the impact that National Honor Society had on the community, I was motivated to join. I'm very proud of my grades, and I can safely say I'm a hardworking individual. By fall of 2018, I was registered for PSEO and I was taking college classes at Ridgewater, so I was not at school every day. Because of this, I wanted to make sure I did not miss my opportunity to apply for NHS. So I talked to people and I found out when the information for applications would be available, but I was told that because I was in PSEO and I was not in a chemistry class, I would not be eligible for NHS. When I questioned this, I was shown a board-approved 2009 National Honor Society Paynesville Student Informational Manual. This manual was over 10 years old, yet was referenced to keep me off of NHS. I took it up with both the NHS advisors, and I was given the same response. I did not know what to do at this point. My authorities had told me that my only option was to wait until my senior year, so I trusted them. The year went by, and after hearing my closest friends speak about all the rewarding experiences they were having in NHS, I felt left out. I always try to look on the bright side, so my passion for NHS did not disappear. When registration for next year's classes came around, I found the 2018-2019 Paynesville Curriculum Guide. This is the newest to-date curriculum guide that mentions NHS. This document stated that the requirements to be eligible for NHS are maintain a 3.3 or higher cumulative grade point average in all classes. I have a 3.68. The following are the required classes: English, be on schedule to graduate. I am. Social, be on schedule to graduate. Again, I am. Math, complete 1 year of geometry or advanced geometry and be enrolled in advanced algebra or algebra 2A or 2B. Students need to be enrolled and complete stats and or pre-calc. I've completed advanced geometry, advanced algebra, and I'm enrolled in pre-calc. Science, IPS, PBS, chemistry, POE, or physics. I completed PBS during my 10th grade year and IPS in my 9th grade year. Nowhere in this most recent NHS document did it state that chemistry alone was a requirement. This contradicts the requirements I was told at the beginning of the year. Because I feel that because I'm a PSEO student, I was discriminated against. I meet all the current requirements for NHS, yet I was still specifically told I could not be in it. I was wrongly told this information. In the curriculum guide, it also states that involvement with secondary school options will not jeopardize a student's candidacy for NHS in any way. This year has been tough, but I managed through it. But to find out the last month of school I should have been eligible for NHS and that I was discriminated against was really hard. I cannot change what happened this year, but I hope to make a difference for future students to come. Thank you.
Is there any questions?
Yeah. No, I thank you for your comments and stuff. So the board typically will not respond to a public input. At the next meeting, there will be a response to your public input. And then between now and the next meeting, you'll also hear from me. So thank you for taking the time to come here this evening and share.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Okay, we are on the consent agenda. So we have minutes from April 23rd, May 14th, May 21st. We have the treasurer's report that was in everybody's agenda. Student activity accounts, wire transfers, and then we have the personnel items for, looks like mostly the summer, except for one that has to do with winter camp. So I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
So we have a motion from myself, a second from Thomas. Then we'll open it up for discussion. So any questions on any of those items?
I just wanted to comment that as treasurer, I did go and look at the bills. And I had a question on some coding on one of the checks, and they're checking into it. Carrie wasn't here today to talk to, or Friday when I was in. But she will be checking on that, so I will check back on that. And also, I had a question on American Engineering Incorporated, the AHERA 6-month surveillance. That's evidently checking on asbestos in the school. And evidently, it's checked every 6 months, but this bill was particularly high, and evidently they checked on the boilers also. So I did talk to Donnie about that one, so I did look into the background. And other than that, I didn't have any questions on the bills. They were pretty much normal.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Carried. We will move then to communication items. And first on the list is our superintendent.
I just have a couple of things. Obviously, it's the end of May, and things are getting hectic. So commencement will be Sunday at 2 o'clock. I have a list of the graduates before board members leave today. If we could just divvy up those lists as far as who will participate in what portion of the board meeting and stuff, or the graduation ceremony, I'd appreciate if we could go through that before one leaves. Final legislative update. I know the dust is still kind of settling a little bit, but as far as the E12 education bill, schools are going to get a 2% and 2% on the foundation aid, which is a place to start. The other piece that is of importance, particularly of the agenda items coming up in our agenda, the Ag to School credit for bond-related issues was at a 40% credit. The governor signed the new legislation moving that to a 50% credit for those ag land acres. And then depending on the health of the fund balance and where the potential fund balance at the state level goes, there is an effort, or at least a plan on paper, to ratchet that up to 70% over a 4-year span. So you'll see a new tax impact sheet when we get to the facility question, where you'll see a decrease in the tax impact on our ag land in our district. The other thing I just want to update you on, I know there was some conversation at the work session about conference membership, and we have peers spent their last year this year in the Central Minnesota Conference. Royalton is coming in to replace them starting in the fall of next year. Howard Lake Waverly Winstead has also indicated to the conference that they are going to be leaving the conference after next year. And we did just receive word late last week that ACGC's board did vote to accept an invitation to the Central Minnesota Conference. There's been no vote yet for CMC schools whether to accept that or not. However, since we're the ones who sent the invite out, generally speaking, those are rarely not accepted. So there will be a formal acceptance of that, and then that would be for the 2021 school year is when ACGC would become a member. Howard Lake Waverly Winstead will have one more year in the conference, and then they will transition to a new conference. So those are kind of the updates I have at this point. If anybody has any questions for me, I will attempt to answer them.
When do they have to make their decision? Is it before the end of the fiscal year to be involved in the 2021?
For the conference
Yeah.
membership, a lot of it all depends on most of the bylaws for conferences say you have to give 1 year notice in order to get out. So Howard Lake Waverly Winstead did provide us notice in March that they were exploring other options and were potentially leaving. So, any other questions?
Okay, then we'll move on. Committee reports. So,
Rick, do you want to touch base on the C meeting?
Well, basically, at the C meeting last week, we just got the legislative report, which was decent. Wasn't great, wasn't bad, it was decent, as Matt has already referenced. So I think that's basically what we were there for, was to find out, and I think we're happy. We got the 2 and 2. So.
okay.
There was a West Central Ed meeting since the last regular business meeting. The West Central Ed is finalizing their plan for moving their offices and stuff this summer. So Sauk Center Schools needs the square footage back that the West Central Ed district is currently using for their office space and for the Beacon program. So to start with, the office space is going to move first, and that will get going in June. The plan is to relocate them over to Melrose in the same building where the ALC is located, with the idea that eventually we are going to get all West Central Ed programming over in that building. So that'll start here, I think it was June 4th and 5th, or 5th and 6th, something like that is what they were planning on for a move-out date. So that was the big order of business at the West Central Ed meeting. Are there any other committee reports?
Don't have a committee report necessarily, but I do have that legislative funding. Who those are interested, it was reported by the House Services. It's a $21 billion 2-year omnibus bill, and then that's for the E12 finance, and then the new spending will be $543 million, and that'll be the 2020 biennium, and then most of that would be used for the general ed pupil formula, as I understand it, and then not necessarily related to us, but I don't know if any of you read the West Central Ed paper, and the Bold School District is, and we've got a facility project coming up, but they need $37 million just to put a Band-Aid on their facilities, and there's some real concerns there, so we consider us to be, unfortunate that we have a community to that, but the needs aren't as great as theirs, but that's just something kind of concerning that folks might want to take a look at.
Okay. Then next in line is the student representative. So who would like to start?
I'll make it short and sweet before Ashley has her things that she wants to say. Like Matt said, seniors' last day, or commencement is Sunday at 2 p.m. in the gym. Seniors' last day was Friday, May 24th. It was sad to see, but well, we all have to move on sometime. So it was a good year overall. I feel that all the students I've talked to, they enjoyed it, especially the senior students. They enjoyed their last year at Paynesville High School. Yesterday we had the Memorial Day program, and where the symphonic band played. That was a great program. Still suggest for our next year classes, our first hour would be our advisory. I don't know what the action on that was. I just thought I'd suggest that again. And that's all I have on my part. So Ashley started.
Okay, well, since our last meeting that we talked at, the mock car crash happened, and I think that was very beneficial. I liked a lot that it was like more like local, personal level than when you just have like a speaker come in from who knows where. It's definitely like was more eye-opening, being that like you know the people that are talking to you. So I thought that was really good. And then I'm pretty sure everyone has registered now for classes, and there were so many new electives, and they were all like amazing. Like honestly, there's so many different things for everyone, like whatever. And with the day 1, day 2 thing, there were so many like more options. Like I struggled like filling my schedule because there were just so many like opportunities to take classes, and so that's good. And then yearbooks were handed out for high schoolers, and the middle schoolers are getting theirs on Friday. So I just thought I would share that.
Good.
So thank you.
Thank you. Then we'll move on to old business, which may be kind of short.
And I have nothing new with district
Okay.
goals.
So then we'll move to new business. And with new business, open to public comment is really on each item. So if somebody from the audience here has something they want to say, raise your hand or speak up, because we have time during discussion to hear from the public. So we'll move to the first item, which is the policy review. All the policies are listed there. It's a second reading. And I guess a good way to start would be to make a motion to accept, if I have that
I'll make
motion.
that a motion from the policy committee.
We have a motion from Rick,
I'll second.
and we have a second from Thomas, and then we have discussion. So any additional discussion on any of those items?
I just have a question. It's not necessarily a policy. So if a student has a low fund balance in their lunch account, what do we do? Do we continue to feed them the proper meal, or do they get a substitute? I see that's a problem in a lot of these districts. I'm just wondering how we deal with it at Paynesville.
Yep. So if a student has low balance in their lunch account, the principals are making contact with families on that. We try to do that proactively, so it's not all of a sudden you have a negative lunch balance and you need to take care of this. There is a point that once they do reach a certain negative balance, they will be served an alternative meal, but students are not denied food. I know I've seen some stuff on the news where students would go through the lunch line and then they'd have to dump their tray because they found out when they went to the cashier that they had a negative balance. That is not the case. Our food service and that whole meal balance policy is fairly liberal. The idea here is we're dealing with teens and preteens and young children. A lot of them aren't working their own job, aren't paying their own lunch balance. So personally, I just find it really difficult to have that be a source of contention for somebody who in the moment doesn't have the means to pay it anyway. The other thing that I can tell you, I've had a recent conversation as well about with a service organization in the community that is very interested in partnering with school for potentially establishing some sort of hardship account or an ability to be able to rectify negative balances at the end of the year. And so preliminary conversations, but to me that was a pretty exciting phone call that I got to participate in, and I'm going to work further on that to see what they would like to do with that. So
That's awesome. Thank you very much.
Will the new, just going off that, will the new JMC or whatever replacement?
Infinite Campus?
Whatever, will that help? Because I have 4 kids and I get negative balance all the time, and I don't know about it till it's like $40 negative. And then it's embarrassing because it's like, oh, I didn't realize it was that far, But yeah, like you knew when it was getting low instead of already negative.
Yep, and so Infinite Campus, you'll be able to set up your own thresholds. So if you want to know when it's below $10, you could put that in. The other thing that we're having some conversation about for next August at Open House is to see, and I don't know what our parents would think of this idea. I would like to just put it out there, see what kind of participation we get. But we could just set up a electronic funds transfer file for for people that just want on a monthly basis to be able to just electronically transfer a month's worth of what, if their kids go through and take just a main meal each month, we would give them that option to just be able to set that up in August before school starts. So that's an idea right now. I'm talking with Matt Dickhausen. We're throwing that one around to see what we can potentially come up there just to make it maybe just a little more convenient for families, because I'm in the same boat. All of a sudden I get a notice and I'm, $8 in the hole, and it's like, where did that all go? So forget to send the check for 3 days and now it's $14 or something. And so it's one of those things where if you could just have it set up, it'd be great. But so we'll see where that goes. But I know Infinite Campus does have, you can set your own thresholds as a parent user on it.
That was off topic, but thanks.
I have a question about the alternative meal.
Yeah.
What does that look like and why? I'm curious because, again, it's typically not the student's fault that they're negative, and is it noticeable to that student?
And I don't know exactly what the alternative meal is. I would need to talk with the cooks on that as far as exactly what it is.
I'm just curious if I don't want them called out or embarrassed.
Sure.
Because it's typically a parent issue, not a student issue.
I'm with you 100%.
I know when it came up last year, that was the same concern.
Yep.
Because there was, sometime along the way, there was a brown bag lunch.
Okay.
So it became pretty obvious exactly what you're talking about. We'll let you figure that one out. How's that sound?
Any other questions about any of the policies?
Okay, the call for the question. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Carried. Okay, the next one is the building bond issuance action. So we all got that building bond.
Can I interrupt?
Yes.
Okay. Can I just go over I would like to just do an overview of exactly what these next two items are.
I would think that would be excellent. I'm
Okay.
wondering how we were going to accomplish that.
Wonderful. I have the paper packet that I provided to each of the board members. That's what I'm going to go over. I'll actually put it on the screen here too so everyone can see it. Just give me 1 second, please. Okay, so it should be 4 sheets of paper is what it should be, but I just want to go over just kind of a comprehensive summary, and then we'll get back and talk about the specific resolutions if need be. Kevin and Perry from UNESCO are also here in case there would be any specific questions with the plan or anything. What I can tell you is the conversation and the work that was done at the work session on the 14th, what you're going to see here is just an exact duplication and continuation of that work. Okay? So when we look at the facility plan, it's three spokes to it, or three pegs to the stool. It's very similar to the survey that went out. The survey really focused on infrastructure, the CTE remodel, and then the community center component. So as we look at this and what's included in the resolutions that are in the agenda, first of all, starting with infrastructure. So boiler replacement. That would be, the intent of that would be a complete boiler replacement in both school buildings. The only boiler that we would be rescuing would be the 2006, the newest boiler that would be at the high school. That one would probably be kept, whether it would be there for redundancy or something, but we would probably repurpose that boiler, okay? The indoor air quality improvements, that is an elementary initiative. That is a piece of this plan. It is most likely going to fall on long-term facility maintenance dollars. It probably will not come out of fund proceeds or bond proceeds. It will be work that is going to be completed alongside the work that is associated with this bond project. So the indoor air quality components would be as well. There's a certain amount of the fire suppression updates that will have to be done in order to do the work with the rest of the project, and so those would be included. And then obviously whatever ADA compliance codes, regulations, those would have to be included as well. The CTE component. It would renovate over 9,000 square feet of our existing high school, the CTE wing or rectangle right now of our building would be completely renovated. We would still be using the square footage and classrooms. It would be designed for 21st century applied learning. So you would see a much more open space, space where you would have more efficient use of equipment and processes, but it would be renovation of existing space. The other piece of the CTE remodel is actually an addition, and that would be bringing the auto shop on site. The auto shop would be just over 4,600 square feet. Having it on site would also then free up the existing land trans building, and that building would be reused for district purposes. Realistically, what that would end up happening is that building would really turn into our buildings and grounds equipment shop. That's where we would store vehicles, plows, snow removal equipment. A lot of the stuff that's in the current armory storage building would be over in that building. One of the things that I think has some upside to it is rather than having to heat that entire building, I think with some rather limited modifications, we could actually turn the current lands trans building into a portion of it being just cold storage and then just heating a portion of the building rather than having to heat the whole building. So those would be the components of the CTE remodel. The other piece when we get to the diagram that you'll see is there's no fabrication lab. Now, the reason there's not a fabrication lab is because our fabrication lab is actually going to go in this summer. It's going to go in what is currently our middle school media center. We will be calling it the Innovation Center, and it will be, I believe it's about 4,600 square feet. And so rather than duplicating that type of space in our building, we figure we could gain a little bit of efficiency without the duplication. Okay. The community center component would have a forecourt fieldhouse addition. It would also have a group fitness room. I want to just be very clear that that group fitness room is not the 5,000 square foot new fitness center that originally, back several months ago, we were talking about. This is an 800 square foot group fitness room that would be off of the existing fitness center, but it would be new construction. It would also include multi-purpose wrestling room. We would also attack the softball complex with an upgrade. Again, this softball complex would not come out of the bond proceeds most likely. Right now, we have $200,000 set aside in the 2020-2021 fiscal year for softball complex upgrades. I also have heard word too that there is an active group in the community that would like to assist with the softball complex upgrade, so I think we are going to have some volunteer labor with that as well, so we're hopeful to see where that would go. So again, I think that would be work that most people would see would run very parallel to facility work if the bond referendum were to pass. And then last, with the community center, you're still, the lobby, concession, storage, restroom, all of those things would be a component of that facility, that community center component as well. Other items that we just have to keep in mind is obviously there needs to be some parking lot expansion. The minute we start going to the north, we're going to start reclaiming parking lot and putting it into our footprint. And so we would have to accommodate and expand our parking lot elsewhere. There needs to be some site water retention plan work done that Kevin referenced at our last meeting. The Armory building needs to be a solution in this too. Most likely, we would need to reclaim some of that space for green space in order to still be able to have the PE green space, the junior high football, that type of stuff that uses that current space right now that could very easily become part of a parking lot as we get this redesign done. And then I already had mentioned it, but it would also include the repurposing of the current automotive program building. The land trans building would need to take on another purpose, and I referenced that a little bit. So the total budget for the entire project scope would be $16 million. That would mean that the bond, due to a little bit of a interest payment and some finance costs that would be associated with it, the bond would actually be $16,090,000. And that's what the resolution that we're going to get to states, and that's what the, would be in the ballot and all of that. So that is the summary of where we are after probably 2.5+ years of work on this conversation. Questions from the board?
I just wanted to reiterate, there will be a walking track, because that was a major...
Thank you. Yes. Yep, there will be a walking track. It will be a component of that forecourt complex. We'll have a walking track around it. The other thing that I didn't mention on there that I know we have board members that frequently got questions about is there's also an allowance in there for bleachers for in that facility as well. And, again, I think that's more of a conversation we can have at the design process as far as what that all looks like and capacity and all that stuff. Other questions?
Okay, when this is what you have listed in here,
Yep.
this still is not exactly set in stone. I mean, it's going to cost $16 million, but if there are some tweaks that have to be done there, they will be board approved and discussed before this project is actually approved.
Yeah, so, I mean, so essentially where we're at right now is obviously this is more in the concept design. I think UNESCO is relatively comfortable that they feel comfortable with this project, with this scope, with this dollar amount. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of factors that can go into that. And if we get to a point where we're advertising for bids and getting bids and it's not going to come at this dollar amount, then the board's going to be back at the table and we're going to have a decision to make as far as what we're going to do at that point. But really then the next step that needs to happen is after this referendum, and let's say it's successful on August 13th, then the next step is really about design and finishing, exactly what is that flooring that's going in that field house, or, what are the components that'll be exactly in that CTE space. And so there'll be a lot of design work that will need to have to be finalized in order for it to really get to a point where, one, we're advertising for bids, and two, we're actually breaking ground and constructing something. So this is just step one of the process. But what will not change will be the dollar amount. Okay? The other item that's in front of you is the tax impact statement. It should be dated, I just want to make sure I gave you the right one. It should be dated May 28th. Okay? Thank you. The only difference on this tax impact statement is it now recognizes the 50% ag to school credit. So if you go down to the agricultural classifications, you will see that there is a difference in what was the May 21st estimate and what the May 28th estimate is. And if you would like an example of that, for instance, if you look at agricultural homestead, a $2,000 estimated value of an acre in the old system had 33 cents per acre of estimated tax impact. The new statement, I believe, has 28 cents per acre. So that's where you're going to see the difference. The residential, homestead, commercial, industrial, seasonal, recreational, none of those changed. The only ones that's changing are the agricultural categories.
So when will the bond be let?
Say that again?
So we decide on this in August. These guys start on the project and people need to get paid. We don't have any money.
Yep.
And so does that mean the bond would let, assuming it went before 2020? Because we had that one other time when it came due just before the end of the year. There's a couple things in play. It's the closing year for a company selling us the bond. Okay, just the obvious business part. But do we have any idea when it'll be let?
2020.
Okay, so it'll take place in 2020.
2020.
Okay.
Yep. Other questions?
Okay. Anything from the public? Go ahead.
Question on that, and I know it's not a big dollar deal, but the armory, if you're gonna start moving into that space, is the government gonna give it to us, or are we gonna have to pay 80?
I'm still trying to work through that. I can tell you, no, we're not going to have to pay 80. They probably aren't going to give it to us either. It's probably going to end up falling somewhere in the middle. I've had a couple of conversations with the representative down in Dallas about that very conversation, and hopefully in the very near future here we have a final figure.
It seemed like if we had somebody that had an idea of who to talk to, besides the person that Matt did, Bob had the same trouble. The communication back and forth. The communication is good here, but it doesn't travel back very fast. Has been my impression.
It is slow.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's happening, so take slow over not happening.
Yeah, okay. Anything else from the public here? Okay, we have a motion for a
Okay,
resolution.
can I walk you through exactly what needs to happen here too?
Go ahead.
Okay, so let's just look at item B. Item B is just what the clerk of the board is going to certify as far as happening tonight once the board moves forward. So there is no action that needs to happen with item B, but what I want you to do is look at item C. Item C is the resolution that the board does have to approve in order to move this project forward. I'm going to highlight just a couple of items in item C. The first one, and I'm skipping the first paragraph there, but I'm looking after it, be it resolved. If you look at paragraph, that's number 1, you'll see in the very first sentence they have the dollar amount, $16,090,000 is what the bond value would be. If you would scroll down to item 3, Item 3 talks about the election date. The election date would be held on Tuesday, August 13, 2019. The hours that we have set up for our combined polling place is 12 o'clock p.m. to 8 o'clock p.m. Our combined polling place is the area center, and so that's where all of the election would take place. If you go to page 4, you will see a sample ballot. And again, that ballot says that the amount may not exceed $16,090,000. If you read through there, that paragraph on that ballot is essentially the same thing that my 4 slides talked about in that handout that's in front of you. It's basically a summary of what is being asked. The last statement in bold, that is a requirement via state statute. There is, that is language that has to be a part of it. The rest of this then walks through the legal process in which the district and the clerk of the board need to meet deadlines and get everything filed in order to have the election and be ready to go. So this is a resolution. It needs a member to make a motion to introduce it. It would need somebody to second that introduction of that resolution, and then it would require a roll call vote.
So for the motion for this, would you just be able to put, like, I move forward the resolution relating to the issuance of the school building? Would that be in bold print? Would that be defined?
Yes,
All right, then I'll call the motion. Here I move the resolution relating to the issuance of school building bonds and calling an election.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Jacob, a second from Maggie. Any further discussion? No further discussion. We got Linda for roll call.
Okay, Ashley? Yay. Jacob?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Thomas?
Aye.
Maggie?
Aye.
Bruce?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Okay, carried. Okay. Are we ready to move on to D then from here? And we are passing totally on B.
Correct. Yep. So what will happen with B? B is just the certification of the action of that calling for that election. That's going to require a board clerk signature, and then we will have to we need to file that with each of the counties that our school district resides in.
Okay, then we're on the 2019-2020 budget.
Okay. This item, I will put it up on the screen here again. I do not have paper in front of you. It is in Drive. If you would like to take a look at, negative, excuse me.
I'm blind.
I can't read either.
It is in Drive. It's under New Business, Item D, 1920 Preliminary Budget. Or if you just want to simply come around and have a seat up here, I'm going to just walk you through everything that will be on the screen. So it'll be your choice. Okay? All right. Whoops.
That's weird. I know. Thank you. Use the plus on this. Rick, use the zoom in versus opening it.
It's the plus.
If you can see the plus, you can see
At the
it
bottom.
better. If anybody's having trouble reading it, use the plus button to expand it.
Well, his is well, no, cut.
It comes
right next to your magnifying thing.
I've got it. I can read it.
And the other thing is that there is a presentation actually in your Drive folder that says, one second, New Business Item D, 2019-2020 Preliminary Budget. That's what I will also just be walking you through. So if it's easier for you to follow in that, you can. Otherwise, you can follow that budget sheet. We're going to come back to the budget sheet when we're done. So, here we go. All right. So the budget for 1920, we're getting close. We're getting close. This will be preliminary run-through. This budget will be back to you in June for final approval. I'm pretty certain we're pretty much locked in. This is where we're going to be. Might be a few categorical things that might change between now and June, but for the most part, I think the big ticket items are going to pretty much be rock solid. Okay? So this all started back in February. I shared kind of, in my opinion, what we have for 4 priorities as we start budgeting at Paynesville schools and what lens we kind of need to look through. First one is to build a system that fosters student agency and voice. Ashley, you give me great pleasure when you say you were happy about those electives. I think that is just the building and foundation of step 1, and now we need to start moving forward with how do we foster that student voice and student choice at Paynesville schools. So I think that sounds like we're moving in a good direction. We also need to look at structures that help support learning for all students, maximize skill and resources of our personnel, and then also maximize our fiscal resources that are available. And, Paynesville's in a unique situation. Those school districts that are at or about 1,000 students, for some reason, time has not necessarily been an ally with the formula that MDE and the state uses to allocate funds, and so we're in a tricky position. So as I brought 8 needs back in February to the board, I think there are some that we are certainly moving forward on. One of the things you'll see in this budget, response to intervention, or RTI, you may have heard of. The goal was to expand that to grades K through 8. Right now it's partially happening in K5. We do have a plan and staffing in place to expand that through 8th grade, and that's represented in the budget. Expand PBIS in our schools. We're still working on that one. Development of career pathways and programs of studies. I underline that one because I think it's still in its infancy. I think next year with this budget and with the resources allocated, I think you're going to see some real definitive work in that one. But it's taking off. It needs a little bit of time, but it's almost there. Formal work-based learning program for all students in grades 10 through 12. That is going to be launched in September. Just actually was doing scheduling today, and I believe there were 20 students that are enrolled in the class, and so I was pretty excited by that. Work-based learning. So we would actually have a licensed employee, licensed teacher that would work with local business owners to get kids actually in the work environment, and they can earn work experience and school credit at the same time. Okay? Increase student choice in electives throughout the system. We've talked about that. Continue the development of one-to-one learning and leveraging technology for anywhere, anytime learning. Development of the whole child education that recognizes and responds to wellness and academic development. That, again, is something we need to do more of, and we need to be intentional as we move forward. We're not there yet. And then redesign of professional development model to respond to the needs of a diverse school staff and promote for professional growth. That's one, again, that I think there's traction forward, and we're making some changes. So as I kind of take a scorecard of this, we were 3 for 8 for moving forward with implementation plans. We've got another 3 out of 8 that I think we're going to see some noticeable changes next year. We were 6 for 8. If we're in the major leagues, we're batting .750. We're probably in the Hall of Fame. So I think it's a place to start, is where it's at, okay? So the February recommendation was we should try and curtail our expenditures by $200,000. We talked about some things that are pretty much must-do items. When you talk about reducing the budget through attrition, saving $79,500 by replacing bringing in a new elementary principal hire, we could save almost $20,000. Reassigning our current principal to the secondary building would save us $2,600. Our shared business management services would save us $8,800. All of those things, I put those together and I say those are no-brainers, they're must-dos. They come up to $110,400. The good thing about it is our actual savings have absolutely hit our projected savings, so that's good. Should-do items, we have a little bit of variation, I believe, in some of these. You talk about reallocating some salaries from targeted services that we can do under funding guidelines. Coding our gifted and talented expenses can give us some savings, eliminate a stipend that's no longer used, reduce some custodial sub-budget amounts. 6 classes, with moving to the block schedule, there would be a reduction in need for those. We would eliminate 1.6 FTE instructor, a potential retirement attrition in our non-certified group, and then reclassifying an instructor to our tech levy through our tech integration. And then we would have one new hire that we would need, and that was the PE position that's already been filled. So when you add all that stuff up, we were thinking we could potentially save $96,500. We did pretty good. We came up with $93,960 is what our actual savings is. So you add those two together, we were recommending a $200,000 expenditure reduction, and we're projecting that we would actually have about a $204,306 reduction in expenditures. So where does that get us? It gets us in what I would say is a pretty good place. We are right now projecting that if everything goes as planned, we would have a $53,432 budget surplus next year. This does factor in the new E12 bill, 2 and 2 on the revenue side of the house, and then we also have some estimations built into place here for as far as contract negotiations and all that stuff too. So what's in the budget? Well, there's a variety of things. First of all, a big piece is we have requested the final gala grant, I believe, and this hasn't been verified, but there's in the neighborhood of $37,000 left. We would use a big chunk of that for our Phase 2. In fact, we'd use all of it for our Phase 2 in our makerspace, really our innovation center, kind of that replacement of a fab lab. That's where that money would go. The difference is about $14,000 in difference. That would come from our designated from facilities money. The other thing we have is our Dillon endowment. That would actually fund a makerspace facilitator, and then it would give us some dollars left over for some consumables as well. When you look at designated for facilities, I would like the district to actually purchase copiers. Our use of photocopiers is dramatically reduced from where it was 6 years ago. I would hope it is, being one-to-one and the delivery of electronic content and Google Apps and all of that, so I think that's an expected piece. But since our use is coming down, we certainly can get more than 5 years use out of our copiers, and so it is much more cost-effective for us just to purchase copiers rather than entering into these 5-year lease agreements. agreements. So there would be an upfront cost of about $73,000 to purchase copiers, but I'm relatively confident we will get 7 years for sure out of those copiers, and in many cases, we probably would get closer to 10 years. So it's a no-brainer in my mind. There's about $14,000 left of the playground update that yet to come, and then the other $14,000 for makerspace consumables that was the overage on the gala money. When you look at operating capital, we've got a variety of things. Most of these are annual expenditures. The one thing that I will say you'll notice more of is this digital curriculum. We have $46,000 set aside for digital curriculum. That is something we're going to get going with, really having professional development and intentionally training teachers to be digital curriculum creators. And so that will be a shift as we move forward.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Would that impact e-learning days? Is that a component that will help?
It will, but I'll give you the 2-second snippet on e-learning. E-learning's coming. We're going to have a plan, and we will have a plan ready to roll out. Next year, I believe the conversations are, they want to have it ready to go to share with parents at fall parent-teacher conferences, so by October. Okay?
Thank you.
One-to-one devices, we have about $62,000 a year that we set aside from the tech levy for device replacement cycle. Vehicle purchase cycle, we are putting $20,000 aside right now per year. The district has 2 vehicles coming up for replacement this summer. We're actually going to have one of the vans become, I believe, the maintenance van, and so then the maintenance van and another van are going to be taken to auction, and we will replace those 2 vehicles. I don't know if you're aware of it, but the state does have a 10-year rule in place. So typically, once a vehicle's older than 10 years old, it's difficult to actually be able to use it for student transportation anyway. So a lot of times, the 10-year rule is what impacts our vehicle replacement. The tech levy. Again, you'll see that this is turning personnel heavy. I think that's a good use of our tech levy dollars. They're predictable. They're able to budget those nicely. We do have the contracted services, which is Tech Check and Jonah Johnson. You'll see his contract coming up. And then we have some device and equipment dollars that come out of our tech levy as well. Smartboard replacement. This room obviously does not have a smartboard, but most of our classrooms, not all, but most of them have first generation smartboards. The good thing is you have gotten beyond their life expectancy out of them, but they are starting to fail. And so starting next year, we'll have $40,000 available for replacement of those, and then the plan will just be moving forward with an actual replacement cycle. The real thing that we need to really do some kind of analyzing on is how are we actually using those smart boards? If we're using them as a projector, then let's get serious about kind of what's behind you versus actually putting a smart board that has all these interactive functions that we don't use. If you're not going to use the interactive functions, don't pay for them. Just get a big display. Okay? And then finally, long-term facility maintenance. We have next year, we have $385,372 in revenue coming in for long-term facility maintenance. I can give you the highlights of what's in there. We have a variety of painting projects that will be coming out of it. About $27,000 for our senior high media center. The flooring will be redone in that media center along with some asbestos removal for a total of $36,700. The Innovation Center, so the middle school media center, going from media center to innovation center, we have $32,000 worth of long-term facility maintenance dollars there. We also have a little bit of overage on our roof. So our roof project this year came in at about $230,000. The bulk of that, about $215,000 or so, is going to be spent with the leftover bond proceeds, and the remaining $15,000 is going to be spent out of LTFM. The same dollars will be in there for our athletic field upkeep as in the past. And then a variety of other things are the typical ongoing expenditures that are health and safety, a portion of Donnie's salary and pieces like that that are annually come out of the long-term facility maintenance. Questions?
I noticed on the list that we were given previously that we're removing some pitching mounds.
Yes.
One was from the 8th grade field, that would be at the elementary school?
Correct. Yep, so the plan is to actually just purchase 2 portable pitching mounds. They're regulation size mounds, but they're portable, so if you have younger kids on the field, you can move the pitching mound up to whatever distance you need the pitching mound to be. And then 2, at the end of the season, we would just simply take them off the field and store them in the elementary building is where we'd be storing them.
Where is the second pitching mound that's going to be?
7th grade field.
That would be?
At the elementary school. So the 7th grade field is closest to the park. The 8th grade field is the one with the dugouts and the actual pitching mound on it. The 7th grade field right now does not have a mound.
No, it does not.
Right.
So there's just one pitching mound that needs to come out.
Right. Those are not actually the removal cost. Those are actually the cost. They're $2,800 for the actual portable mounds. So that money that's in there is for the purchase of 2 portable mounds, one for the 7th grade field.
That was my question because
Got it.
Removing the mound isn't a problem. If need be, we could eliminate that fund for that because I've got volunteers that would do it.
Yeah, no, we got 0 calculated in for the removal.
Okay, that was my question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Those are the cost for the new portable mounds. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Did you see that slide that you just showed us in the drive somewhere?
Yes, I thought it was.
Thomas had it up.
Yeah, I had it up, the slide.
I just wanted to know if it was in the drive, so yeah. Apparently.
Yep. Item D, 2019-2020 preliminary budget. Okay. Other questions about the budget? So then let's go back to the budget sheet, if your eyes can bear this. And you can magnify this sheet, which I will need to do. So as you look at this, again, just reiterating, general fund, unassigned, to me, that's the one that when we talk about fund balance and everything, that's what we're talking about. What we're expecting for a budget reserve at the end of the year for 1920 would be $53,432 to the positive is what our fund balance would be. As you scroll down, there's a couple of items that you look at the grand total and it's $156,000 deficit for the year. A big piece of that is moving that Weaver CD fund out of the current CD and putting it into a designated for facilities amount. It comes up as a zeroing out that line item, so that's a $92,000 budget move. And then if you look at the operating capital piece, we are deficit spending by $60,000 in operating capital, which we are comfortable with. There is a surplus there. And then the vehicle purchase is also a $20,000 deficit as well. Now, next year, or a year out, so 2021, we will put $20,000 back into that reserve for vehicle purchase, but we have no vehicle purchases planned. And so that would just be an annual thing. Next year, that line item is going to show a $20,000 surplus. Okay? This is not an action item tonight. It's just simply this is where the budget is. The moral of the story, all in all, I think the budget is in good shape, and realistically, everything is moving together. The plan that was kind of talked about in February, thankfully, is working, and we are moving in that same direction. This will come back at the business meeting in June for approval as the preliminary budget. Questions?
Okay, then we will move on to the Baseball Association's request.
So this is a request that I have from, yep, thank you, gentlemen. This is a request I've had from Chris Stanley. He's the president of the Paynesville Baseball Association. One of the things with the Baseball Association, if there are any events in which they wish to sell beer, that the board has to approve those prior to those events. This summer, the Baseball Association has actually attracted two what we would consider kind of top-tier tournaments to our community. The first one's in July, and that's a 13U state tournament. Will be hosted at our facility. I'm forgetting the exact dates, but it's towards the end of July. The second one is the 2019 Division I Legion Tournament, and that is August 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. We are an auxiliary site to this. The host city is Cold Spring, and then Watkins and St. Martin are also participating in this. What I am hearing from the Baseball Association is typically these Legion state tournaments typically do have beer sales at their venues. The other venues that are participating in this tournament are planning on having beer sales, and so the Baseball Association is making this request to the board. This is just for your information this evening. I know Chris will be back, or will be at the June meeting if there are specific questions. But I guess I was not here when the baseball lease went into effect, so I wasn't part of any of those conversations. All I can do is read what's on the paper right now. I did spend some time reviewing that lease. I don't find anything in that lease that would say that the board can't approve this. I think there are some questions as far as what is youth event and what isn't a youth event, but if the board has specific questions, I would be more than happy to take those down, and then we can come back. I can get you more information for next month if that's something you need.
Matt, can we get a copy of that lease?
You bet.
It's been, I wasn't on the board when that was passed, and I remember certain things that were in there, but I want to be clear on that before Chris comes, so I know what questions to ask.
When that went through, it was kind of difficult to put it all together, really. And unlike both the other two communities you said, they're not at schools. So it was always a fine line between what we sponsor at school and to the message that we're leaving the kids. So granted, in this case, they're going to go to the other two schools and there's going to be beer in the stands. That was a big thing when we put it all together, and we managed to get through it, but we found it after months. Shakopee Schools has one. I think there's only 2 or maybe even 3 in this whole state where a public arena or a public stadium is on school property. And I don't have the contacts there anymore, but it might be worth a call to the superintendent there.
I think it was Chanhassen, wasn't it?
You're right, I'm wrong. It was Chanhassen, wasn't Shakopee. And see what their thing is, because I dug the old one out too, and it does say youth there. It's not defined. And so then I went to the American Legion site, and it looks like this is 16 to 18 years old. It's not like adult from 16 to 50. It's just the kids. And I'd be curious to see what they might have handled in the same situation. This kind of thing we're not unique to it. We are relatively unique because we have a stadium on school grounds. And it took forever for us to figure out how to pattern it after something that was already there, and that's how we managed to get it done.
Sure.
The reason I'd like to see the lease too is I remember there were some restrictions in there about what else could be going on school property when that was happening. Like, I don't think there was allowed any youth practices or any kind of youth activities. So.
Correct.
Yep, and there's specific verbiage in there too about community education and things like that as well, so.
I
can-
don't want that to get lost.
Yep, I will certainly get you that,
And then you'll get it to everybody.
yeah, I'll send it out to everybody, and you guys can all review the lease. The only thing that I would ask is, in order for there to be answers at next month's meeting, if you have questions, could you please let me know what the questions are, so that if I don't have the answer, or if Chris needs to do some digging on the answer, we can actually do some research on it before we come to the meeting next month, and then we get questions that we don't know the answer to, and everybody kind of stares at each other like, now what do we do? So let us know if you read it over and you have questions, okay?
Okay. Then we'll go to the next item, which is J. Stephen John LLC contract.
So this is one-year contract with Jonah Johnson for tech services. I would recommend its approval. The cost difference between this year and next year is about $420 is what the increase is. So I would recommend its approval. I don't necessarily know where we're going to go in the market in order to get the services we need at the cost we're currently at. Questions at all about the contract?
Is there anything else different about the contract?
No, the only thing that changed was the total value of the tech services. Like I said, it ended up going up about $420, and the average estimated hourly rate was modified by a certain number of cents to get to that $420 is where things are at. I would consider it pretty much it's the same cost as it was last year. There's very little change to it.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I have a motion from Cheryl.
Second.
I have a second from Rick. Any further discussion? No more discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Carried. Okay, the next one is the Glacial Lakes Adult Basic Education Agreement.
This should be an annual agreement that the board sees. Given our size, we do not offer our own adult basic ed programming. We partner with the schools that are in this consortium. This is also how we access our adult basic ed funding from the state. It actually goes to the consortium and then out to Paynesville. So I would recommend that we continue the practice, and we approve this agreement as presented, and most likely as you have for the last probably close to 15 years. I think the Glacial Lakes Adult Basic Ed Program or Consortium has been together. So,
do we have a motion to approve? I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Second by Cheryl. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Carried. Okay, and then we are review upcoming meetings.
So this is what I have. Just want to make sure if there's other things I'm missing. June 11th will be our work and learn session, 6 p.m. We're going to make the move to the boardroom. So we'll see how it goes. It's going to work is what's going to happen. So we will be in there for the work and learn meeting.
Wait, where's the boardroom?
It's right across from the office.
Oh, okay.
Down this hall, okay? Rick, I did also, June 11th, I believe, is the Regional C meeting in Kimball.
I'm going.
Perfect, excellent. June 12th, we have teacher negotiations on the calendar, 7 a.m. Set your alarm, please.
Yeah, you're bringing the coffee, right?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
just making sure.
And we'll meet in the boardroom for that meeting. And then on June 25th, we have our regular business meeting at 6 p.m., same location. June should be a pretty light month as far as meetings are concerned, so that's what I have. If there's others I'm missing, speak now, please.
I think we're good.
Excellent. Move we adjourn?
We have a motion to adjourn from Jacob.
I'll second.
Second from Thomas. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Carried.